And welcome back to this playthrough of Hyperdimension Neptune. In this episode and the next 4 episodes, we're going to go ahead and take on an incredibly long fetch quest. Yes, actually the rest of this game is actually a fetch quest if you're doing the absolute minimum in the game. If you don't care about the story, yeah, that's pretty much all you're going to be doing. So, first things first, we have to figure out how to get Celestia so we can challenge Arfoire. As a side note, I decided not to do a story so far segment only because the next segment is so short. I can go ahead and take care of the game and then just explain the entire story at the very end. So, a long time ago, there was a goddess who wanted to take over the world, and this was long before we had more than one goddess and before HURRAY existed. This is actually the reason why HURRAY exists at this exact. This is why HURRAY exists at this point. So, the goddess was stopped by heroes from the human world, and they were just special people. Don't worry about that, this is common. So anyway, they used a road to get to Celestia so they could challenge the goddess, and after the goddess was defeated, she decided she didn't want this to happen again. She separated part of her powers that allowed her to modify the human world. That is HURRAY herself. So a goddess cannot change anything in the human world without HURRAY ever again. Well, a current goddess. A former goddess, however. But anyway, that's a completely different story. This road to Celestia will allow IF, Compa, and anyone else who is not a goddess to go to Celestia to challenge Arfoire. But the heroes sealed the world. So the heroes sealed the road. So the only way that you can get back to the road is you have to find their weapons. And thus, the rest of this game is a fetch quest, which is kind of sad, but it actually goes by pretty quickly. You can actually finish the rest of the fetch quest in about 40 minutes, and actually, you're going to see me do it in about an hour, and that's only because I can't skip text. If I could skip text, I would be done a long time before then, but it's a completely different story. Also, the needing 3 days is almost a catchphrase of HURRAY because you will hear her say it a lot throughout the rest of the series. And if you think about it, her being the history of everything in the world, yeah, you can kind of understand how it would take that long. But anyway, HURRAY is absolutely useless. Long story short. You don't have to remember this at all. With the way that this game works, you don't have to remember this. If this game actually had a world map, like the next game does, then it would be a little bit more applicable, but you still don't have to worry about it too much. So generally, except for Lean Box, it goes in this sort of series. Dungeon, event, event, and then possibly another dungeon. Planeptune is different, where it's just going to go dungeon, event, event, event. Lean Box, I think, is 3 dungeons, and that's only because Lean Box is actually quite dungeon heavy when you think about it. which is Neptune herself. I don't know why, I just find that statement funny. And a lot of little puns and the jokes aren't actually directly translated, obviously. They're translated. They are puns and jokes derived from our culture. And he can take quite a few hits, so he can be a little difficult. But outside of that, this boss isn't that extremely big of a problem. And I'm going to go ahead and probably switch to Lyrica just because I love her attack animations. Maybe I use her in Lost Station, because I recorded both of these on the same day, and this fetch quest runs together in my head. Oh, I switched to red because she was there. That's right. And oddly enough, for some rare pieces, these things are given to you quite easily. As a matter of fact, 9 out of 10 times. Oh, let's just go with 50% of the time. 50% of the time, the people who have them just hand it over to you without any fight. Or making you pay for it or anything. They just give it to you. But then again, I suppose this is a nice change of pace in comparison to the goddess defense. Now, if you had to run around all over the place instead of just selecting the event, this would be quite annoying, but it's actually a lot less annoying than you might think it would be, especially in comparison to some other fetch quests and other RPGs or MMOs. And I really have mixed feelings about this visit to the Basilicom, because it's possible that Planeptune just doesn't know what their goddess looks like, but this would have been an interesting time or a good time to go, hey, meet the goddess of Planeptune. She's standing right here. Because at this point in the game, they still don't know who she is, or where their goddess is.
く見て。これは剣のガードの部分じゃない？三元なんとか剣が再出。
やっぱりもしかしてそうじゃないかと思って。
ねえ、これもらってもいい？世界を出すわけないでしょ。だいたいクレジットは私が預かってるんだから。私のお金は。
お金などとんでもない。どうせ何かの役に。
Yet another piece that was just given to us.
よかったです。これで2つ揃っ。三元戦剣のパーツはまだど。
And the last piece of the Trinity Blade is
英雄
kind
ツ
of
リ
in
ーベ
a
ルは
ridiculous
女
place.
神の野望を食い止めたものの、その後もし三元戦剣が眠っていると。
And for the most part,
そうい
every
うことは。
one of the hero's weapons has 4 parts to it. So you'll be going through a total of 4 events. You are forced into a sort of rhythm with it, because after this one, you have to go to Lost Station. You can't like go to Laui and get the one for Laui.
なんじゃ騒がしいの。観光か？モンスターが現れてよく来た。ここは英雄ツリーベル様が旅立たれた場所じゃ。今なら
英雄で商売？いつの時代のどこにでもせこい人っているもの。
そう。ツリーベル様はここで生涯を閉じた。その証としてかろうじて紛失を。
これがその剣の。
おお、それはまさしく。
私たち悪いことする女神様を倒すために。
そうか。そういうことか。
That's the blade. Now we only need one more piece, which means we need to go through one more event. And I really don't have to explain these events. It's just essentially a short conversation and then them handling it over.
そんなお菓子みたいな名前のパーツ、もういいんじゃない？いいわけないでしょ。おじいさんはそのポメルがどこにあるか知ってる？
それが全く手がかりがないんじゃ。
こうなったらしらみつぶす。はいです。武器を集めるのも結構大変。最悪いいっす。宿屋のベッドの枕が合わないって自分家にお待ちどうさまです。ちょっと遅くなったです。武器が集まればすぐ深海に行っちゃうです。その使い方はちょっと違うんじゃない？まあ何でも前もってところでコンパ、何そのアクセサリー。本当ですか？これ噂のおじいちゃんから。
So, if you haven't already guessed by this conversation that we're having now, the thing that Compa's been holding is the last piece of the sword.
お願いですから。もうヘルパーさんのお尻は触らないでほしいです。なんていうか、とってもイメージしやすいおじいさんね。普段の感じを聞いて。あれ？ねえコンパ、それちょっと見せて。おじいちゃんの形見ですか？
Yep.
形見っておじいさん生きてるんでしょ？それよりきっとこれよ。これって確かおじいちゃんがポーチの裏。ほら、コンパのアクセサリーをグリップの付け根に合わせると、ほらぴったり。
We have one more really sad message to go, and then
違いない。ほら見て、これが英雄ツリーベルの三元戦剣よ。
We have the sword, but we can't equip it, which is quite sad. But anyway, that's it for this episode. I'll see you in the next episode when we meet up in Lost Station.